This is the DiPietro, Canty, and Rothenberg podcast.
I'm a big star, you know.
Listen live weekday mornings from 5 to 8 a.m. on 98.7 ESPN in New York, the ESPN app, the TuneIn app, or on your smart speaker.
Hey, Alexa, play ESPN New York 98.7.
This is DCR.
The trade deadline is 36 hours away, and last night, Gallo gets removed by Texas from their lineup.
Wow, the guy that hit it out of any ballpark.
Joey Gallo, being able to add him to this lineup should help the Yankees in terms of them trying to make that postseason push.
I don't think he gets enough credit for the type of defense that he plays.
This is the time that the Yankees need to make that push. This is the time they need to stack series wins. We're 100 games in. They've got to continue to gain ground, otherwise they'd be getting late really early.
This is DCR on 98.7 ESPN.
1-800-919-3776. 1-800-919-ESPN. It is DCR here on 98.7 ESPN. The only normal member of the crew, Chris Canty, has been very benevolent this week with me, Bob Wischusen, in for the guys. And the Straight Talk brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless has all morning been the Yankees have certainly shown their cards. They are absolutely still going for it this year. And if you had any doubts, they put those doubts to rest last night by making a trade for Joey Gallo. So let's get back to the phones real quick. Anthony in Staten Island has been patient, and he joins us next year on 98.7 ESPN. Anthony.
Hey, good morning, guys. I guess going into this, I probably wasn't in favor of them making a deal only because, look, they've been good the last couple of years, and they really haven't gone all in. And I'm like, now they're kind of bad, and they're going to go in all now. But nevertheless, I'm excited. I mean, they didn't give up too much, and this guy's obviously, a lefty in the lineup. I mean, go figure. The only stadium, right, that's like tailored for a lefty, and they don't have a lefty. So finally, that works. I'm kind of interested to see if they actually give him A-Rod's old number. So that was 13, so that'll be cool. But I think this makes them more likely to pick up someone else. And I think they're probably either going to shop for some sort of a pitcher or maybe even a center fielder and make Glenn Allen like a fourth outfielder or something like that. So I'm curious to see what you guys think. But I just think that by them making this move, it's more likely that they make another move now, between now and the deadline. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Anthony, I agree with you. I think there's more moves to come from Brian Cashman in the Yankees front office. What that actually is remains to be seen. I would like to see them try to fortify the pitching staff. I feel like they could use another arm in the bullpen, and I wouldn't be mad if they decided to add some help with the rotation. I do know that you're getting a lot of guys back, like you're going to get Severino at some point the second half. Corey Kluber should be able to – we'll see what ends up happening with him. But I feel like they could add some more arms to the pitching staff. If you threw in another position player there, if you added, a Trevor Story, middle infielder, I wouldn't be mad at that move either, but I would just prefer that they add to the pitching staff because I feel like that's going to be more of a need. You don't want to kill your bullpen before you even get to the postseason. So I think that's where, if I was making the decisions, I would focus on for the Yankees.
Well, that is the Straight Talk brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. No contract, no compromise. But if you want to talk about the actual Straight Talk, there was a certain quarterback yesterday in Green Bay that gave us the straight talk. If you didn't see Aaron Rodgers' press conference yesterday, the first time he has met the media and spoken publicly since what he went through with the Packers, well, he did. I don't know, CeCe, to me, this was like every disgruntled employee's fantasy. I am going to say whatever I want. I'm going to unload, and to make the fantasy even more fantastical, they can't touch me. Right? Like most people, I think, fantasize, if I ever got another job, I would walk into my boss's office and I would say this. Or the day I retire, I am going to unload on this guy. This guy still has years and millions to earn, and he said whatever he wanted to say yesterday. And he went in there with a calculated speech ready to go.
No, he did. And the thing that I appreciate as a former player is that he stuck up for the guys that were veteran players in Green Bay that were integral to the team's success over the past decade, where he felt like the organization had mishandled them. Like he went down the list of guys, whether it's Julius Peppers or Jordy Nelson, Clay Matthews, like he went down the list of guys that he felt like were done wrong by the Packers front office. So I can appreciate that. He was completely transparent. You can't have anything but respect for how he handled himself with the media yesterday. But in saying that, just listening to his tone throughout that press conference, it's clear that he's not over whatever issues that he has with Brian Gutekunst in the organization. He's not past it. This is not something where you're going to say it's water under the bridge. This is just one of those things that we're going to table it for now because we got to get to the business of competing at a really high level. And Aaron Rodgers is not at the stage of his career where he can afford to give away seasons when he's at the height of his powers. Like, he's not going to do that. Like, for Aaron Rodgers, coming back to Green Bay was more about him being able to enhance his legacy and having a chance to compete for another Super Bowl as opposed to, I'm got to do this because I'm under contract with the organization. Like, this is more about Rodgers saying, I can't give away a season more so than, anything else. And so for me, like, I saw the press conference and I was like, yeah, he's still not over it. But I do think this could be one of those things that ends up galvanizing the guys in the locker room, because if you're a teammate of Aaron Rodgers, I don't know how you could hear what you heard yesterday in that press conference and not absolutely love the guy.
Great.
Like, they're going to go out and they're going to play hard for him, no question about it.
Great point.
And it could end up getting Brian Gutekunst the result that he's looking for, this team being able to get past the NFC Championship game and get to the big game once again.
Yeah, but like, if he's still got the back of the guys that aren't even here anymore, he's going to have my back because I'm the guy going to war with him now. So you're right. It probably does make his teammates feel even more that he's in their corner than maybe they did before. But let's listen to, if you didn't hear it yesterday, a couple of things that Aaron Rodgers had to say. And we can just take these in order. He wants to be used as a recruiter, and very surprised that he had not been used as a recruiter to get guys to come to Green Bay. So here's Aaron Rodgers on that.
Wanting to be a part of conversations involving free agents, which has never happened in my career. I've trained with a number of NFL guys most of my career in the off seasons. My agency, Athletes First, has had a number of high draft picks over the years. I've tried to pass along information. Hasn't really been used, shall we say. So I wanted to offer my services as a recruiter. And I think we can all understand, Green Bay isn't, a huge vacation destination. People are coming here to play with me, to play with our team, and knowing that they can win a championship here. And the fact that I haven't been used in those discussions was one I wanted to change moving forward.
You want to talk about a diplomatic way to describe Green Bay. That's exactly right. Not a vacation destination, but it is a great place to be a football player. And he thinks he deserves to be in on personnel decisions at this point in his career and the status that he has reached. Here is Aaron Rodgers on that.
I talked to Matt after the deal had already been in place to hire him as coach. I wasn't part of that conversation. Let's just make that completely clear. I do love Matt, and we've had a blast together, and I'm glad he's here. But decisions like that have happened over and over and over again that make me realize that the organization looks at me and my job is just to play. In my opinion, based on what I've accomplished in this league, the way I care about my teammates, the way I show up in the locker room, the way I lead, the way I conduct myself in the community, it should tie myself to a little bit more input. The rules, are the same for most people, but every now and then there's some outliers, guys who've been in an organization for 17 years and won a few MVPs, where they can be in conversations at a different higher level. I'm not asking for anything that other great quarterbacks across the last few decades have not gotten.
Well, see, that's the problem right there. He's asking for something that quarterbacks in Green Bay don't get.
Right.
And that's the thing that I think Aaron Rodgers feels a way about. But, I mean, listen, he should know how this thing is going to go. I mean, he was the guy that they drafted to replace Brett Favre, and Brett Favre still had some good years left in him. Brett Favre still got to an NFC Championship game after that happened, albeit with a different team. Like, it's just, this is one of those, like Aaron Rodgers has got to understand, this is how Green Bay does business. This is who they are. They're not going to give the quarterback, that type of treatment, that superstar treatment where they include you in high-level conversations about what they're going to do from a personnel standpoint. Now, it seems like he did get a little bit of more sway because they did go out and make the trade for Randall Cobb. I think they gave up a 6th-round pick. But I think that has more to do with just trying to appease Aaron than any significant pivot from the Green Bay Packers organization in terms of them, including him in a meaningful way moving forward.
Well, Chris, this is the cut as well. If we go to cut number 4, guys, this is the one that I think probably more than anything widened people's eyes. Wow, he is just flat out calling them out for how they have treated former players, and he came in with a list. He kept glancing down to his right to make sure he didn't miss any names because he wrote all these guys down. Here's Aaron Rodgers on the list of players that were treated poorly, in his opinion, by the Packers.
I wanted to help the organization, maybe learn from them some of the mistakes in the past, in my opinion, about the way that some of the outgoing veterans were treated, and just the fact that we didn't retain a number of players that I felt like were core players to our foundation, our locker room, high character guys. I'm talking about Charles Woodson, Jordy Nelson, Julius Peppers, Clay Matthews, Randall Cobb, James Jones, John Kuhn, Brett Good, TJ Lang, Brian Balaga, Casey Hayward, Micah Hyde, guys who were, exceptional players for us, but great locker room guys, high character guys. Many of them who weren't offered a contract at all, or were extremely lowballed, or were, maybe in my opinion, not given the respect on the way out that guys of their status and stature and high character deserved.
Yeah, he came prepared. He had that list made. He wanted to make sure he didn't miss any names.
Yeah, he had the receipts yesterday. He
Yeah.
did. And listen, I don't disagree with what he's saying. Like, Aaron Rodgers is not wrong for what he wants and what he expected to see from the Packers. And so I get the rift and how this could devolve over the course of this offseason. I completely understand it. But now, he's reported to camp. He seems like he's all in. You saw the clip of him at practice yesterday working with Jordan Love and the other quarterbacks. So it feels like, Aaron Rodgers is going to put this to the side and focus on the business of trying to win football games. But make no mistake about it, this thing is not over between him and the general manager and the front office. It's not. And so I'd be interested to see what details come out about the concessions that the Packers made beyond just voiding the 2023 season in Rodgers' contract. But this is going to be interesting. This is going to be something that we speculate about all season long about where Aaron Rodgers is going to end up in 2022. This isn't over.
Yep, 800-919-3776, 800-919-ESPN. Hey, by the way, if you're driving around right now or listening to us this morning, if you have a story, either you, a buddy, something like that at work where you, on your way out the door, just went scorched earth to your boss, I'd like to hear it. To me, those are entertaining stories. Like, if you've got an Aaron Rodgers, if at some point you pulled an Aaron Rodgers, give us a call and tell us about it, because to me, he lived the dream yesterday, right? Like, everybody at some point in their life has had a job with a boss where you wanted to just unload, and all you could do was go home to your wife, to your husband, to your friends, to whoever in the bar after work, and you just spew everything that you'd like to say to your bosses. I think you can tell Aaron Rodgers actually lived the dream, right? Like, he not only has said this to all of the people in the offices at Green Bay, but he went in front of a microphone yesterday and basically spewed it all to the whole world.
Thanks for listening to the DiPietro, Canty, and Rothenberg podcast.
You're absolutely right.
Catch the show on demand wherever and whenever you want. Just subscribe to us, rate us, and review us wherever you get your podcasts.
Back to the telephones, and Spike in St. Pete, as always, a DCR regular, has been patient, joins us next year on 98.7 ESPN. Morning, Spike.
Good morning, my friends. You guys doing seamless, Bob. Be self-deprecating. I know your humor pretty well, but you did very well in Stump and everything else. You have more knowledge in that. A lot of knowledge in that head. Listen, the Yankees. Did you guys saw my cousin Vinny, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but is it Joey Gallo or Joey Callow? They got. I'm a little
Well
leery,
done,
but yeah. I think of the moves they made. People just are sick. I love sports talk radio, and I'm very active in it. But sometimes the questions just throw me off. They go, Brian Cashman never got pitching. We know that. We've known that for 20 years. But they need left-handed hitting. Your outfield defense has been fair to poor. This guy's a terrific outfielder. I think he's leading the majors with assists in his arm. He can run, and he's young, and he's still under control 1 year, pretty much. Am I right?
You're right.
Correct.
All right. So what's the downside? He's left-handed.
The downside is he strikes out a ton. The downside is he's, a left-handed version of a lot of what they already have. That's the downside. The upside is it shows you they're going for it. He is a good defensive outfielder, and he's a lefty at Yankee Stadium, which they've been way too right-handed. So I admit there's definitely positives to this. But I think there's
way
bit
more positive than negative to it.
Yeah,
I think that's the way to look at it.
You're right. But see, this is still, to me, again, like we talked about in hour number one, definition of insanity, right? Like repeating the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Let's get another high strikeout home run hitter to put in the middle of a lineup filled with high strikeout home run hitters and think that one more guy that does that is going to get us over the top.
No, I hear where you're coming from. But again, Brian Cashman believes in his philosophy. He's going to try to put as much pressure on opposing pitchers by having dangerous hitters in the lineup. That doesn't always mean that those hitters are consistent. And that's how it's felt with the Yankees offense. It's been feast or famine too much this season to the point where they're at the bottom when it comes to a lot of major offensive categories, including scoring runs. And so that's the biggest issue that I have, but Joey Gallo is going to help that. There's no mistake about it. It's just that, is this move going to be enough to be able to spark the offense to go on the roll that they need to in order to get their hands on one of those wild card spots? That's the part that remains to be seen.
Yep. We got more Jason Aldean tickets, by the way, to give up a little bit later on.
Big Jason Aldean fan. Big fan.
Yeah, me too. Live Nation presents Jason Aldean, Friday, August 6th, PNC Bank Arts Center, Saturday, August 7th at the Northwell Health at Jones Beach Theater. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. Be listening later in today's show for your chance to score a pair of tickets to see Jason Aldean live at your choice of the PNC Bank Arts Center or Jones Beach Theater. All from Live Nation, your home for the hookup, 98.7 ESPN. I'll be excited when 98.7 ESPN starts to run a giveaway for fish tickets. But Jason Aldean is what we're doing right now. 800-919-3776. Get Walter in Harlem up next here on 98.7 ESPN DCR. What's up, Walter?
Hey, guys. How you doing? I got a question for you. To me, the whole thing with Gutekunst and Green Bay, he feels to me like Jerry Krause with the Bulls and Jordan. Like he has a personal thing against the quarterback. His ego is more, any GM who has an asset like a Jordan or like the Green Bay quarterback, you want to maximize your assets. And to me, this feels a little bit like Jerry Krause. I want to see what you guys think about that.
Yeah, I can see some similarities there. Like, I mean, that whole organizations win championships, not the player mentality. Like, I get that, but I mean, Aaron Rodgers wasn't wrong when he said, earlier this offseason on SportsCenter, he was talking about organizations being made up. It's all about the people. Like, and he told them yesterday, like, these are the guys that I felt like were mistreated or mishandled on their way out the door, and something about that has to change. And he's trying to be the one to change it because of the clout that he has, because he's coming off of an MVP season, because he recognizes his true value to the organization. Like, ain't too many guys around the National Football League that can stand up and criticize their bosses the way that Aaron Rodgers did yesterday and still have a job the next day.
Yeah, Chris.
But because he was that dude, he took it upon himself to be able to do that and to voice his opinion. And I got to say, I don't disagree with anything he had to say yesterday. I really don't.
Chris, you lived the life of a pro football player. I know to get to that level, not only do you have to be incredible at what you do, but you've got to have a belief and an ego that, like, you're that good. And correct me if I'm wrong, coaches have just as big sometimes an ego as the players have. And the general managers, I think, sometimes have just as big of an ego as the coaches do, don't they?
No question about it, sometimes even bigger.
Right.
Depending on what they've accomplished.
Sometimes you're watching a team, and you're like, oh, my God, this guy stinks. How do they keep running him out there? Why does that guy keep playing? This guy's awful. And I'll tell you right now, sometimes why that guy keeps playing. And you pick the sport. That guy keeps playing because the guy that drafted that guy wants to be proven right. Like, he wants to be able to say at some point, I saw something nobody else saw. He wants to be, right? He wants to be able to.
You sound like Rick describing Brian Cashman when it comes to certain guys on the Yankees.
Maybe, but like.
That's what you sound like.
Yeah, but that exists.
No, it absolutely does. And when GMs have their guys, then they're going to try to make decisions that support the belief that they have in that particular player. And in this instance, we're talking about the Green Bay Packers, deciding that they were going to go down the road of drafting another franchise quarterback in Jordan Love and really not informing Aaron Rodgers or communicating with Aaron Rodgers what the plan would be in terms of charting a path forward.
Right.
And I think that communication breakdown is ultimately what led to Aaron Rodgers staying away from the Packers all offseason long.
Right.
And I don't know how – listen, I don't know how they repair this relationship. Like, this is going to make for awkward bedfellows because, I mean, they've got to work together this season, but clearly they still don't like each other. And so I don't care what Brian Gutekunst said in terms of the relationship being, professional. It's clear that Aaron Rodgers still feels a way about what Gutekunst has done, what the Packers front office has done. And, beyond the 2021 season, it's still a huge question mark in terms of Aaron Rodgers' future in Green Bay.
Yeah, they have to get to a Super Bowl, if not win it. Right, to me, you have to have that kind of a ride. You have to have that kind of a feel-good kumbaya season where at the end of it, especially if they get to the Super Bowl or win it, Rodgers wins another MVP, all of those stars align. Brian Gutekunst can actually sit there across the table from Aaron Rodgers and go, all right, more input, you got it. We will definitely want, let's make decisions together, but do you really want to, at the end of your career, go start over somewhere else? Or do you want to sit here and let's ride this thing for all that it's worth?
Well, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is going to want to set himself up to have success at the highest levels, and it's hard for him not to look around the landscape of the NFL, not to look at what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did for Tom Brady and decide he wants to sit in it with Green Bay. And the other side of that coin is that the general manager at some point has to put Jordan Love out there on the field because he drafted him in the first round. Like, at some point, that's going to happen.
There's the ego. That's what I'm talking about.
You're exactly right. But
I'm sure he wants to be proven right about Jordan Love at some point.
Oh, of course he does. But, I mean, at some point, the organization has to find out what they have in Jordan Love, similar to what happened with Brett Favre. Like, it got to a point where they were running out of years on Aaron Rodgers' rookie contract, and they had to make a decision, okay, we've got to put this guy out here and see what he can do. And it was at that moment where they decided to move on from Brett Favre, not because he couldn't play, but just because they had to do something to see what they had in Aaron Rodgers. They had to.
Yep.
So, I mean, listen, I think, as a matter of fact, I think the year that they decided they were going to move on from him, they weren't that far removed from an NFC Championship game appearance. So, I mean, that just shows you, it's regardless of what the results are, anything short of winning a Super Bowl, the writing is on the wall in terms of when the Packers are going to move on from Aaron Rodgers. It just is.
Like if Mike McCagnon was still the general manager of the Jets, Sam Darnold would be the quarterback. Right? You would never draft a guy third in the draft and be the general manager to kind of publicly admit, I have to correct this mistake, I have to go somewhere else. It just wouldn't happen. It takes a new general manager to come in and move on from that player as every bit as much, I think, a part of the actual analysis of what's going on with your team as it is the ego of the guy that drafts. And I understand it, right? Like as long as, the general manager is still in place when that top, 5 draft pick is the quarterback, that guy's going to be the quarterback for that general manager. As long as Dave Gettleman is the general manager of the Giants, Daniel Jones is going to be their quarterback.
Yeah, I mean,
no doubt.
That's kind of how it works out. I mean, but with this situation, with the Packers being so close to competing for a championship, you would just like to see them involved Aaron Rodgers in terms of some of the decisions that are made, just because the quarterback is the guy that's ultimately going to make the difference in your team being able to get to that point. Like, I mean, go ahead and give the guy the ingredients that he needs to cook the meal. Like, go ahead and give it to him. Like you saw what Tom Brady got down in Tampa. They already had a stacked team, but they went out and they got Tom Brady some of the things that he wanted. They went out and they signed Antonio Brown, even though Bruce Arians felt the way about it. They went out and they signed Leonard Fournette when he became available. They got Gronk out of retirement. They drafted Tristan Wirfs. They did all of these things because they realized those are what the things that Tom Brady wanted. And what did Tom Brady give them in return? A Lombardi trophy.
Yeah, it worked out.
So it's hard if you're Aaron Rodgers to see what Tampa Bay is doing, to have that be the team that beat you in the NFC Championship game on their way to a title. It's hard to see Tom Brady have that kind of sway within the organization and not want that for yourself.
Thanks for listening to the DiPietro, Canty, and Rothenberg podcast.
I don't wake up at 4 a.m. to wear a swim shirt.
Looking for more access to the show? Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at DCR on ESPN.
See, this is what sounds like summer to me. CeCe's looking at me on the Zoom like I have no idea
I don't know
what
about
you're
that
talking
one.
about.
This don't sound like summer to me.
Name that tune.
I have no idea.
Come on.
I have no clue. This is not my speed, B.O.B. I'm just telling you.
When you look at me, what do you see? Do you see like hippie? Do you see tie-dye? Do you see like a guy who wears like, cargo shorts and Birkenstocks and puts like a big bandana on his head and walks around with a big doobie in his right hand?
I don't see none of that.
That's not what you see, right?
What I
looks
see
can be deceiving.
What I see is the voice to the New York Jets. That's what I see when I see B.O.B.
Yeah, you see somebody that most likely close your eyes and picture me like in the third row at a Barry Manilow concert, right? Like that kind of guy. Yeah. I'm a Fish fan.
Let me find out you got a dark side like Don LaGreca.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like a closet hippie. Or I take that back.
Right.
I'm not a hippie. I hang with the hippies.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like I'm like a pseudo. Like I'm the guy that shows up in a golf shirt, and all the hippies look at me like, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "I just like hanging out with you people."
I like hanging out with the hippies, a little hippie lettuce. Like going that direction with things.
So Fish played in Arkansas.
Let me find out about my new teammate.
That's what I'm saying. But Fish is coming. They're going to play actually on the beach for 3 nights in Atlantic City, and the Jet Giant preseason game is the middle of the 3 nights. But I'll be there Friday and Sunday because now, like live music, if there's anything that helps signal that this is all over. And it's not all over. And where we're at right now, we still need to be doing whatever we can to get to the finish line of this pandemic. Mm-hmm. But what gives me hope is live concerts or like the K-Show doing their beach bash, seeing full stadiums. Like, at least we do feel like, especially if you're vaccinated, you can do those kinds of things again. So I'm really looking forward to at least the rest of the summer.
You're looking forward to the Fish concert.
I'm really looking forward to the Fish concert. You know what I'm really looking forward to? I'll tell you, I am so looking forward to fans being back at MetLife Stadium for Jet and Giant games. I don't know. Yeah. Did you go to any of the games in person last year, or did you just watch them all on TV?
No, I watched them all on TV. I was locked down. I was in the house. I didn't move around. Like I wasn't comfortable doing that. I
understand. I mean, for the Jets, our deal was if the Jets were on the road, we went to Florham Park. They set us up in the media room with a big TV. We pumped in crowd noise. We got the ref mic synced up as best we could, and we called the game off of monitors because that was the world we were living in. When the Jets were home, they did set up protocols where you were isolated in your booth. You walked in the stadium, barriers in between you in the booth. You had to be with a mask on. You had to have tested, all of that, and we called all the games from the booth at the stadium, but not a soul in the building. I mean, at least some stadiums had, 10%, 20%. Mm-hmm. There was a handful of friends and family. In New Jersey, you were not allowed to have anyone in the stadium other than the teams, the coaches, the refs, and a handful of security personnel just in case there was an emergency. That was it. I cannot tell you how eerie it was to spend your whole life calling football games where football is Armageddon, right? Like you lived that. Football, every game is the end of the world and the tension in the stadium and 70, 80,000 people in there. And now you're calling football games, there's not a soul in the seats. It was really, really weird. Really weird.
I couldn't imagine that. Like that's so strange to be there on a game day and not to have any fans, not to feel that electricity in the atmosphere. I mean, it's hard not to feel like that's a scrimmage or a practice. You know what I'm saying? So it's just that's got to be strange calling a game from up in the booth and not having a fan in sight in that stadium. Like, so, I mean, I'm excited about it too. I'm excited about getting back to the normal that we're all accustomed to when it comes to football season and really our viewing experience. Because as a fan at home, I mean, the crowd does add an element to the entertainment value in watching the games. Like the crowd noise, all of that stuff, those things are factors, not only for the players that are on the field, but for the people that are watching at home. So I'm excited about being able to have fans back in stadiums, because it gets back to the game that we know and love. It's more of the product that we're used to seeing.
The crowd's the blood in the body. I mean, the crowd is literally like, and I always knew that. I mean, as a fan growing up and as a broadcaster, the games I remember the most are the games where the crowd was the most electric, right? And but to actually have the contrast, it's almost like It's a Wonderful Life in the worst possible way, right? Where we saw in sports what life would be like without fans. I always knew that the crowd was what drove the energy of a sporting event, but to actually then get the control in that experiment and spend a whole year calling games in an empty stadium, man, it was really, really eerie. And so I'm so excited to have fans back. 800-919-3776, 800-919-ESPN. We got an observations coming up. Looking forward to that. But Nick in Hoboken joins us next here on 98.7 ESPN on DCR. Morning, Nick.
Good Morning, Chris and Bob. Hope you guys are doing good today. Guys, I don't know what we're doing here. We're the Jets. We're the clown show of the NFL, the literal clown show. We're saving all this money for what? We don't want to sign Marcus May. Our defense is atrocious, and that's our best unit. We have no secondary. He's one of 11. He's a guy that brings some swagger in the locker room, some leadership. We don't want to give the only – guys, it's Joe Douglas's you-know-what if this doesn't work out with Zach Wilson.
Yeah,
now, I love Joe.
Job.
I love Robert Saleh. I think that them two together can be great. But what are we doing? This has to be ownership. I don't understand. You need as many good football players on your team as you can get. I don't want to hear this about he's a safety. He's one of 11 on one side of the ball. You need him. The Jets have draft capital. I don't hear no talks about them getting Chandler Jones. Xavier Howard's disgruntled. I know he's in the division. Make the best offer. I don't care. We need these players. We have this room. What are we saving the money for? And I'm just going to hang up and you guys can talk.
All right. Go ahead, CC.
Well, here's the thing. I look at the Jets' position right now, and I don't know that they need to go out and be aggressive in making a move for Chandler Jones or Xavier Howard. I don't think the Jets are quite there yet, and quite frankly, I don't think that's where they absolutely have to invest a lot of resources in. Right now, it's about being able to get your young franchise quarterback's career off to the best possible start, and so I'm looking to fortify that offense. Now, I love the move that they made, being able to bring in Morgan Moses, a relatively cheap deal. I mean, you're talking about base salary less than $5 million, so you feel good about, your tackle tandem with him and Mekhi Becton. They moved up in the draft, and they got Elijah Vera Tucker as an interior offensive lineman. He's going to man that left guard position. So the offensive line is markedly better this year with Zach Wilson than it would have been at any point with Sam Darnold. So you feel good about that. But, I don't know that the Jets need to go out and make a whole bunch of big moves right now. I think they maintain their cap flexibility, they maintain their draft capital, and they allow this team to go out there and see what they can be. Like, I just feel like before you start doing that, you got to form an identity as a team before you start trying to supplement your roster with adding these big moves in the trade market. I just don't see the Jets being at that position in their program building right now.
Yeah, a couple things, I guess. I kind of take them one by one. So let's start with Marcus May. They didn't let him go. They didn't trade him.
No.
They tagged him. So he's going to make $11 million this year. It's not like they're sitting there saying, Marcus May, thanks for the memories, but you're worthless. You're just an average safety, and goodbye. They valued him enough to put the franchise tag on him. They're going to pay him $11 million this year, but there is going to be a fiscal responsibility argument to how much you pay a safety. And I hope that they can keep him. I hope that they can arrive at a long-term contract solution with Marcus May. But what are they doing with all that money? What they're doing with all that money is they're trying to save it for guys that play higher premium positions that they also know they're going to have to pay in the not-too-distant future.
Well, here's the other thing, too, Bob. When it comes to paying Marcus May top-of-the-market money at the safety position, you would like for him to have some games under his belt with your new head coach, Rob Saleh, who's a defensive-minded guy, and let Rob Saleh be a part of the decision-making process when it comes to signing off on that type of deal at that type of position for Marcus May. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like you would want them to have the opportunity to work together for a season before you make that type of long-term commitment, because you understand what you're doing to your salary cap in terms of tying up dollars and allocating resources at the safety spot. So I'm with you 100% on how the Jets are playing this Marcus May thing.
And the Jets can call the Dolphins if they want about Xavier Howard. They're not getting Xavier Howard. Or what they would have to give up to get. Like, if you're the Dolphins and you have, I don't know if you agree, if you think Xavier Howard is as good as he thinks he is, he thinks he's a top 5 corner in the NFL. I would say at worst he's a top 15 corner, probably a top 10 corner. Are you trading a guy that could be a kind of quote-unquote lockdown defensive player to then go guard your guys twice a year for the next 7 or 8 years in your own division? You're not trading him to the Jets. If you put him on the block, he's going to go somewhere in the NFC to a team you play once every 4 years. You're not trading him to the team in your own division. So they're not getting Xavier Howard. They did spend money on Carl Lawson. You want to go have them go out and also get Chandler Jones. Look, you bring Chandler Jones here, He's a top 10 pass rusher in the NFL. You bookend him with Carl Lawson. I get it. That also is a lot of money to commit to that particular spot
and
without knowing you got corners. And draft picks you have to give up.
That's the biggest thing for me with the Chandler Jones thing. The money aside, like, he's worth the money. It's the draft picks. And again, I go back to the point, like, you're not at that phase in program building where you can mortgage away draft picks in order to bring over Chandler Jones. Like, you're not ready to win right now.
Yeah.
So that particular move doesn't make sense. Like, if it's just a matter of money, that's one thing, but that's not the case. Like, Arizona is going to want significant draft capital in order to get your hands on one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. The Jets ain't there yet. So Jets fans have to understand that this is going to take some time in terms of rebuilding this team. This is year one of a new head coach.
But I told you yesterday, like, they don't want to hear that. Right? Like, a Jet fan wants to hear the word rebuild the way a 4-year-old wants to see broccoli on the dinner plate. Right?
Well, what are you going to expect with the rookie quarterback?
I know. I'm with you. You and I are the same. We are lockstep with this. Just because the rebuilds of John Idzik and Mike McCagan didn't work, not only does that not mean something different for Joe Douglas, it reinforces the idea that Joe Douglas has to rebuild again. And I get it. Like, rebuild is a 4-letter word to a Jet fan. They've been hearing the word rebuild for 10 years. I totally understand. But if anything, the failed rebuilds that lead into the Joe Douglas regime even makes it more imperative that he do this the right way. And I think when you look at this roster, I mean, you said it yesterday, I think you believe he's starting, at least foundationally speaking, doing this the right way.
No, he is. He's building the team through the trenches, right? He's focusing on the offensive and defensive fronts, and you feel good about what they've put together the last couple of years. And now you've got the franchise quarterback. Hopefully they get him in camp sooner rather than later, but you're going to have him, a guy that both Rob Saleh and Joe Douglas signed off on. You feel good about them being able to move forward with that as, you know, kind of the core group of what your team will become in the future. So I don't understand why Jets fans are in a hurry, why they want to skip steps. You've seen what skipping steps get you.
Yeah.
It gets you a decade of being out of the postseason, which is now the longest drought of any team around the NFL. So, I mean, you got to lay the right foundation in order to have sustained success, and I think they got the right people in the building trying to do that right now. It's just going to take a little bit of patience.
Yeah,
right now is not the time to go out there and make a whole bunch of splashy moves and give away a whole lot of draft picks. That's not where you're at right now.
Well, I think they're doing it the right way. I agree with you, but I do understand why a Jet fan wants to be in a hurry, because they feel like they've been in a hurry for 10 years and are running in place and haven't gone anywhere, and I get why they want to get to the finish line, but there's still a process to get there. Chris Canty, Bob Wischusen, DCR, presented by Progressive Insurance, guest via the Goodyear hotline. I think it's time for Nobservations. Is it not, RJ?
Rick DiPietro consumes more media than anyone on this planet.
Great point, Rick. It's another genius point by you.
And these are his Nobservations. We could have called it Rick's Observations, but, you know, it's Rick we're dealing with here.
Yeah, let's go testy and then knob.
Here's your host, Rick DiPietro.
Well, I'm not that. I'm not Rick. It's quite the intro for someone that's not Rick. I am RJ. Rick actually called the studio yesterday morning. The guy just can't get enough. He misses everyone. He misses the show. He sends his best. I think he's out floating in a boat somewhere.
I'll give it to you whenever you want it.
He's out there floating, enjoying life.
Everyone does that.
He said he was still waking up at 5 a.m., which I
would be a menace as a teenage girl.
I'm sure you would. But I don't know why you're waking up at 5 a.m., but you might be listening now. Hello, Rick, if you're out there. So
I got some sexy undies.
Good for you. So we talked, you guys did, and played the sound of Aaron Rodgers, for lack of a better term, just keeping it real with the Packers yesterday. In the aspect of fairness, why don't we hear from the general manager of the Packers, Brian Gutekunst, and he was asked to describe his relationship with the Packers quarterback.
Professional. You know, it's always been a very professional relationship. And I think our goals are the same, right? Trying to get this team to win a championship.
That doesn't sound so good.
No, not at all.
Doesn't sound
not
good.
At all.
That sounds like the boss that read the riot act, but the guy he can't fire, and now he just has to eat it.
And Brian was also asked, so where are things going? Where are you at with Rodgers?
Well, I think obviously to get him back here playing and going to compete for a championship in 2021, that was kind of the resolution. I think we're working through some things still, to get to that point. But, there was a lot of communication between Aaron and his representatives all summer to get to where we are now. So we feel good about it. And I think obviously we have a very good football team.
I think that tells you how bad things were. I mean, if Rodgers himself didn't shine some light on that yesterday, what tells you how bad it was is all the work that Gutekunst just detailed to get to this point, to where they are now, which is Rodgers scorching earth at a podium.
Yeah, I mean that just tells you like it's not a good relationship. They're not in a good place. But I mean, Aaron Rodgers really didn't have a whole lot of choice in the matter just because he wasn't willing to give up a season in his prime. At this stage in his career, it's about being able to compete for championships, and he's not going to give away his age 38 year because of a dispute that he has with the general manager in the front office. Like, he's not going to do that. But, I mean, beyond 2021, we'll see what happens. But if you're Brian Gutekunst, you got to count this as a win because you got the guy to report to training camp on time.
Staying together for the kids. That's what I take.
That's what it is? Yeah.
Staying together for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
A guy who has had a bad week, bad week, is former NFL safety TJ Ward.
Yeah.
So on Tuesday, Ron Rivera, who is the head coach of the Washington football team, said he was, quote, beyond frustrated that a little over 50% of Washington's players have been vaccinated, because that kind of sets in place a wheel of a lot of protocol that goes into place that Bob was talking about not too long ago, about what it's like being inside the facility and things like that, because when you're under, 85%, everyone must abide by these rules. When you get over it, you get a little more leeway. So that led TJ Ward to opine in this way on Rivera and Rivera's past history of cancer. He said, just park the riverboat. His health is beyond that of COVID. Maybe it's time to let it go. Don't blame the players for your lifelong health decisions. Now, this was a since deleted post on social media.
I would hope so.
Yeah. The always...
He, blamed him for getting cancer.
That's what I don't understand. Yes. How is it his fault that
Ron Rivera,
he got cancer?
It's a shame you went out and caught yourself some cancer, but don't blame that on us.
And this is part of the deleted post. At some point, you got to pay for them vices. Cancer runs in my family like many American families, but also bad diet and cigarettes do as well. Accept responsibility. Ooh.
Wow. Yeah, because every single person that's ever gotten cancer eats poorly or smokes, right? There's no other kind of cancer to catch.
Well, at least TJ Ward followed the age-old, surefire way of making things better. Just delete it and hope no one saw it.
Too late.
But we did see it. It's too late for that.
Yeah.
I mean, could you be a bigger knob than TJ Ward for saying something like that to Ron Rivera, who is truly one of the good guys in the National Football League? And just so we're clear, when you start talking about taking care of yourself, I mean, Ron Rivera was one of the most fit coaches in the National Football League, too. He's not one of them dudes that you just go roll up on. So, I mean, it's a little bit ridiculous what TJ Ward is saying. Like, it's just like, get the hell out of here with that. Nobody wants to hear from you. Go away somewhere, never to be heard from again.
It's hard to make all of social media agree on something, but... they all agreed, and they all went after TJ Ward. Ward.
He deserves it. He deserves it.
He earned it.
He's not been heard from. All right, one more before D-Hiff. Michael Thomas and the Saints and Sean Payton, they got some problems going on down there. So Michael Thomas, to fill you in, he is getting surgery, and he's going to be out for a while. He's going to miss time at the start of the year. So Adam Schefter reported back in January that Michael Thomas was expected to undergo surgery. He had to repair a torn deltoid and other ligaments in his ankle. That was a big issue last year. We all remember it. Missed a lot of time in and out of the lineup. So it was revealed last week that Thomas did not have surgery until he reported for Saints mandatory minicamp. That happened in June, not January. That was last month. And Sean Payton didn't hold back. He said it needed to be done sooner. It should have been done by now. It's not, and that's on Thomas. Michael Thomas has not commented on the decision to delay surgery, but from where we're sitting, Chris, you said this before the show, it looks like he took a page out of Scottie Pippen's playbook.
Yeah, and I guess he realized that Jameis Winston was going to be his quarterback, so he said, this is a good year. If I'm going to miss some time during the season, this will be a good year for that to happen. But, I mean, It's not. Sean Payton's not wrong. Michael Thomas knew this was going to be an issue. He wasn't right all year long. It's not something that you want to let linger in the offseason. You got to have surgery and get that thing fixed so you can be available for your team. Sean Payton's not wrong for his gripe, but ultimately, it is what it is at this point.
Real quick, let me ask you guys, what do you expect from the Saints this year?
I think they're one of the biggest mystery teams out there. I mean, and obviously it hinges around the quarterback. Like the theory is going to be that Jameis Winston watched Drew Brees, learns from Sean Payton. He's not going to be an interception machine. Go prove it, right? If he goes out there, CC, and turns the ball over the way he did, even close to what he did in Tampa, Saints are in big trouble. If he now becomes a disciplined version of the best of Jameis Winston, he could play there for the next 5 to 7 years. Mike Tannenbaum, I know, has talked about the fact that he thinks Jameis Winston could be one of the great reclamation projects in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to definitely improve Sean Payton's worth as a head coach and a developer of talent at the quarterback spot. So we'll see what ends up happening. But as far as the outlook for the Saints in 2021, I think they're a 9-8, 10-7 kind of team. I think they'll fight for a playoff spot. Not sure they'll get in. That's the kind of club that I expect, just because I don't think that Sean Payton is going to be able to coach all of those turnovers out of trick-or-treat Jameis. I just don't see that.
You know what's going to be wild this year is saying things like 9-8 or 10-7. Or 1-16.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm trying to adjust, RJ. I'm trying. It's not the easy.
I did my little algorithm yesterday.
It doesn't sound at all natural, but I guess we'll get there. All right, Ray.
A man's naked behavior outside of his South Florida home, all caught on camera.
Caught on camera in Florida.
Did it happen in Florida?
That was a man in swim trunks who appeared to fall out of the sky.
A man was arrested for riding his bicycle on the front lawn of a Naples home and telling a woman inside he was an FBI agent.
What's the deal, man? Why are you naked?
All right. That's Bob's first time hearing that.
I know. No, I've heard it many times, and it never stops making me laugh.
Well, first time being here for it. Yeah, actual audio from actual police scanners in Florida. All right. So here's where we're at today. A 32-year-old man was arrested when police officers spotted him attempting to throw an alligator onto the roof of a cocktail lounge. How did we get there, you ask? The man was taken into custody, charged with possession and injury of an alligator. The alligator is since okay, I believe. Unarmed burglary of an occupied dwelling, theft, and criminal mischief. The man told officers, when asked why he had an alligator, trying to put a live alligator on a roof, said he was trying to teach it a lesson. And he also he made it known that he had captured and transported the alligator from a nearby miniature golf course. Did it happen in Florida?
It had to have happened in Florida.
Right? Alligator at a nearby miniature golf course, and I'm going to throw him on the roof because I'm teaching him a lesson? I don't understand. But it has to be in Florida. There's no way that this could have been anywhere but Florida.
Right?
Yes, it happened in Florida.
Was the man's name Chubbs Peterson by chance?
No.
He was just trying to take that alligator's eye out.
At a mini golf, he's trying to teach it a lesson. I mean, there's a lot to digest.
Damn alligator bit my hand. Oh my God!
I'm gonna go Florida. I'll go Florida.
You're all correct. Daytona Beach. I feel like the alligator gave it away, but I couldn't pass on the story. Well done by all three of you.
My first job out of college was in Florida. For like 3 years, I lived in Miami, and I worked for the All Sports radio station down there. This whole thing has evolved over the last 25 years or so. I had no idea I lived in the weirdest place on earth. It seemed relatively normal to me, other than, the fact that every morning I woke up and there were palm trees swaying and it was beautiful outside. I had no idea that, I lived in the most wackadoo state in America until I started religiously listening to this show and that segment.
Wow, the fact that it seemed relatively normal to you, I think that says more about you than it does about the state of Florida.
Well, I'm a fish fan.
Very interesting. People throwing alligators on roofs doesn't seem like it's anything out of the ordinary for you.
Thanks for listening to the DiPietro, Canty, and Rothenberg podcast.
I have nothing left.
Hear more of DiPietro, Canty, and Rothenberg live weekday mornings from 5 to 8 a.m. on 98.7 ESPN in New York, the ESPN app, the TuneIn app, or on your smart speaker.
Hey Alexa, play ESPN New York 98.7.